Welcome to your second video, your first from at home. I am excited that you've decided to watch this video for your homework so that we can do our really fun activity in class. We're going to start today with estimation. So in class we've talked about how to write numbers in different ways based on their place value. Well, today we're going to take that a step further because now that we understand place value, we can estimate those numbers or round them to the nearest tens. So as always, I want to start with my I can statement, and this kind of guides where we're going with our lesson today. So I can estimate, and there's that word estimate, a number to the nearest tens place. So I want you to think in your mind right now, where is that tens place? So what might this look like? Okay, so if this is my rounding mountain, okay, this is going to be one way that I can show you to think about estimation. So if I have my estimation mountain or my rounding mountain, I have to first label that mountain. So I'm going to start labeling, and it's important that we label it the same way every time. So I'm going to put my 0 down here, and I'm going to go all the way to 4. And you'll notice that those digits stay on this side of the mountain. The other side of the mountain is going to be where I put my 5 through 9. So I'll write those in. Okay, and you'll notice that I have 5 digits on either side. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digits. Then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digits. So if you ever get confused, just write them all out and then put a line right down the middle, and that's how you split down the rounding mountain. Okay. At this point in the video, if you do not have all of this copied onto your paper, your WSQ, you need to have it because you're going to need it here in a minute. So go ahead and pause the DVD or the video and copy this down, and then we'll move from there. All right, so at this point, we're going to actually use our rounding mountain. We got to figure out what in the world are we using that for. So I have written a number here. I have 354. Go ahead and say that out loud. 354. Okay. So if I wanted to estimate to the nearest tens, the very first thing I have to do is I have to figure out which column is my tens. So go ahead and write this number down, 354. And once you've done that, I want you to underline your tens column because that's where we're going to round or estimate. So underline your tens column. Which one is it? Should have been the 5. So I hope that you underlined the 5. Once you've done that, here's where our rounding mountain comes into play. We have to look next door and decide which side of the mountain does that number fall on, or that digit. So now I'm going to draw my mountain again. It's a little bit smaller this time. Remember, I start with 0 and I go to 4. Okay. Okay, now we're going to use a saying that's going to help us. So I'm going to put that up here on the top so you can read it with me. It says, 5 and above, give it a shove. 4 and below, make the arrow 0. So you'll notice here we have this arrow. That's the number that would become a 0. If it's 5 and above, we're going to give this number a shove. That's why we underlined it. Okay? So let's put that into practice. Is our number, and this is the one that the arrow is pointing to, so this is the number we're looking at. Is this number 5 and above, give it a shove, or 4 and below, make the arrow 0? That's right, it should be 4 and below, make the arrow 0. So we're going to go down this side of the mountain to our 0. Okay? So now my number becomes 350. Because all I did was make this 4, where my arrow was pointing, a 0. Okay, let's try it with one more number. And don't worry, I understand that this is difficult. We will practice this a lot in class. This just gives you kind of a background. So if I give you the number 236, and I want you to estimate it, let's make our mountain. Okay, I'm estimating to the nearest tens. So, which value am I going to underline? My tens value. And then where do I look? I look next door. Okay? So I'm looking at my 6. Now let's remember that phrase. 5 and above, give it a shove. 4 and below, make the arrow 0. So if I'm looking at this number, is that going to be 5 and above, give it a shove, or 4 and below, make the arrow 0? If you said 5 and above, you're going to give it a shove. So we give this number a shove, okay? So this is going to be 200, and we only increase it by 1. You will never increase it by more than 1, okay? So it should be 4, and then everything after it becomes a 0. And when you look at this number, the whole point of rounding and estimation is to find a number that's a little bit easier to work with or that's easier to estimate. So like if you go to the grocery store, you know you have $5 in your hand. If something costs you 236 cents, you can estimate it to be about 240 cents, and then you're good to go. Okay? So is 240 really close to 236? Yes, it's only 4 cents off. Okay? So that's important. Okay, the last thing I'm going to show you today is why this actually works, or another way of looking at it, okay? So if I have this number line here that you see, okay, and I wanted to plot a point, so for example, I'm going to plot this point right here, okay? And that's my 126 on my number line. I need to know which number is that really close to. Well, you'll notice that my number line goes up by tens, okay? So if I want to pick the tens digit that's really close to my 126, if I just look at this number line, can I decide, let's see, is it between these two? No, so I ignore those digits. Is it between these two? No, so I ignore those two places. Is it between these two? Okay, so now I have to decide which one is it closer to. And it's closer to 130, right? So I'm going to underline that. Now let's do my rounding mountain and do the same thing. So if I have 126, okay, look at your mountain on your paper. If I'm going to my tens and I look next door, okay, is 6 5 and above, give it a shove, or 4 and below, make the arrow 0? It is 5 and above, so I give my green underlined a shove, and it becomes 130. Now, are those the same? They are. So that's why this works. All right, that's all we're going to go over tonight. Make sure that on your WSQ you've filled in all of those pieces. And remember, a summary is not 1 or 2 sentences. A summary is lots of information. You could do the practice problems on the back. I do expect more than just 2 sentences on your WSQ. All right, the last thing I'm going to leave you with is a joke. What do you call a cow with no legs? Can't wait to hear what you come up with. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great night.